Welcome back. Kilmer Abrego Garcia is back in the U.S. months after being erroneously deported to a notorious prison in El Salvador. But now he's facing new federal charges. This Friday, Abrego Garcia is scheduled for an arraignment and detention hearing. He's now facing charges of human smuggling of undocumented migrants, in addition to being accused of being a member of the MS-13 gang. This coming after months of a legal and political battle over his deportation and right to due process. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland. And Senator, appreciate you joining us. You met with Abrego Garcia in El Salvador. That was back in April, so almost 2 months ago now. What's your reaction to him finally being brought back in the U.S. and he's having an opportunity to receive due process, but also hit with these new federal charges?
So, Anna, it's good to be with you. Bringing him back to the United States and having his case processed in a court of law is a victory for our Constitution and due process. I mean, remember, President Trump and the Trump administration said that he would never set foot in the United States again. I have said from the beginning that this case is not about this particular individual, Abrego Garcia. It's about his constitutional rights. And if the Trump administration can trample over his rights, they can trample over the rights of anybody who lives in the United States of America. So he's now in the court in Tennessee. He finally has access to his lawyers, and he will have access to due process. That is what I have been fighting for, and many have been fighting for from the beginning.
The federal government is now accusing Abrego Garcia of human smuggling, alleging he helped to move undocumented migrants for 9 years, including members of the MS-13 gang. The administration previously accused him of being part of that gang without putting forth concrete evidence, and he has denied it, claiming he fled El Salvador because of gang violence. But these human smuggling allegations, they weren't mentioned previously when he was still being held in El Salvador. So I'm just wondering how you see the evidence against him and what you make of these allegations coming out now.
Well, Anna, as you say, these are new charges. They had not been brought against him previously. When the Trump administration made these claims on social media that he'd been a member of MS-13, the federal district court judge in Maryland, Judge Zinnes, said that the administration had presented no evidence linking him to MS-13 or any terrorist activity. My point all along is that these are issues that should be decided in a court of law, not statements made on social media. So, look, the administration has brought these new charges. We do know that one of the senior prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Tennessee quit his job. We believe it's in protest about bringing this particular prosecution. But the short answer is I'm going to leave that question to the prosecutors and to the lawyers. Now, finally, Abrego Garcia has access to his lawyers. He finally had a chance to talk to his wife. So bringing him back is what we had been fighting for, again, in order to make sure we secure his constitutional right to due process.
I'm sure you know you've been singled out. Your name has come up specifically since Abrego Garcia's return. President Trump calling you a total loser, his words. This was in his interview with Kristen Welker over the weekend. Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller called you a fool on social media. And then take a listen to Trump border czar Tom Homan.
Van Hollen's an embarrassment to the halls of Congress. He went over and collared an MS-13 gang member, a designated terrorist, a wife beater, and a public safety threat. And as we continue to do the investigation, now he's a human trafficker who trafficked not just guns and weapons, but people, trafficking of women and children. So he's going to pay. We're going to prosecute him.
Senator, what's your response to those names that they called you? And do you have any regrets at all about meeting with Abrego Garcia?
Oh, I have no regret, Anna, about defending the Constitution of the United States. And those statements come from individuals who have no respect for due process or the Constitution of the United States. The president and his cronies have shown time and again that they're willing to ignore and sacrifice people's constitutional rights to impose their political views on the country. They're doing this across the board. They're abusing their power by bringing these lawsuits against universities and colleges, cracking down on First Amendment rights. So what we have is a lawless president and a lawless administration. And now, finally, we have Abrego Garcia able to be in a court of law, which is all that I have asked for from the beginning. And we have an administration, and you just heard from them. They said they weren't going to bring him back to allow him to have due process. They've had to do that in response to the court's decision, a 9-0 Supreme Court decision. We don't see those very often. So I am always glad to stand up for people's constitutional rights, and that's what we're doing in this case.
Let's turn to what's happening in California now and the clashes between police and protesters after ICE raids in that area. The president has called people taking to the streets insurrectionists and deployed the National Guard. Do you think that was an appropriate response by the president?
I do not think so. I think the president should allow local and state law enforcement to do their job to protect public safety. People have a right to peacefully protest. People cannot use violence, and anyone who's engaged in violence should be held accountable. But that's what the president has done, is thrown gasoline on a fire. He is enjoying the political spectacle for his own political purposes. But as Governor Newsom and others have said, state and local law enforcement are the appropriate parties to make sure that we protect public safety and hold people who are violating the law accountable.
When we were just reporting with our reporter in Washington, Yamiche Alcindor, that the administration is looking at potentially more raids and saying there could be more scenes like we're seeing in LA, in that area, around the country. How fearful are you about where this could all be headed?
Well, the administration has shown that it's prepared to abuse its authority in order to pursue its political agenda. And this is a time for all Americans, regardless of political party, to stand up and say that we have to protect the Constitution, we have to protect due process, we have to protect public safety. And that's what local law and state law enforcement officers do every day around the country without Donald Trump bringing in and nationalizing state National Guards.
Senator Chris Van Hollen, appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much for taking the time.